Yeah. Wow. Good job. So, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Yeah. Lost my chat. Didn't have a picture on. So, okay, let's try this again. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Here's my St. Patrick's Day tree. Let's take a look at my stuff. Y'all, batting 1,000 today. Happy Monday. It's been a rough couple months. Okay, so here are my variegated things. These were the ones that have the speckles in them that I mentioned. These are the ones that have the short variegated color repeats that have the long solid colors. And then these were the two that I did the twill on. So there's my experimental stuff. Like I said, lost the chat. Don't know where that's at now. Good times. Hopefully that'll, if anybody does post in the chat, it'll show up on my screen. So we'll see what happens. Anywho, so I was practicing with the twill. That's what we're gonna do today. And the cool thing is with the twill, I am gonna show you a different way to warp your loom. And to warp it the way that I'm gonna show you, you can use it for multiple things. And it's gonna be as we do patterns, I'm going to show you different ways to warp the loom and how those work. But in general, the way we're going to warp the loom for this, you could also use it for a plain weave. Let's say if you wanted to have, let's say you've got your loom here. You wanted everything that goes this direction to be one color and everything that's going this direction to be another color. Okay. Obviously that'll give you different effects. But the way I show you for twill will be the way that you'll want to warp it for something like that as well. And like I said, it's all about playing. So definitely feel free to try different things. Like I tried these with sock yarn and I don't exactly know how I feel about them. They're kind of loosey goosey. I did not block any of these. Obviously, you can see they're kind of curly on the ends and stuff. I was just playing with these this morning, so just to show you guys what this looks like. And I think I'm going to do a project with them. Like I said, I also have those squares that have the crochet squares with the moons on them. And I've really been thinking I want to make a vest to go over some of my dresses. I just made this recently, so I'm like, yeah, might as well make some more stuff. And this might be a good way to use up like various single balls of sock weight yarn that you might have, and combine things so that you can make a bigger project out of it and you get more bang for your buck. So with that being said, let me show you a couple little examples here. This is twill in something that's closer to a worsted weight. This is the square that is my Oink Pigments hand spun in the aqua, and my Spinning Guild, Greater Los Angeles Spinning Guild combo spin from like, I guess that would be 2 years ago now. That's like in vintage Christmas colors. So I added the aqua to it, and I have a bunch of these squares that I'll be putting together. I've shown that in previous posts. So this is one of those squares done in just the plain twill. And then I did another one yesterday that is in, I want to see, maybe this is like a DK Sports. I don't know, just by looking at it. But definitely, I mean, this is thicker than a sock weight, and you can tell the difference in the fabric. This is very, movable and airy and see-through, and this is a bit more on the dense side. In theory, you might be able to, well, maybe if you had a thicker yarn, you could make something dense and then make toys or what have you, something solid out of it. This would do well for garments or whatever. So shawls would be good. So those are my examples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to warp on the large loom, but then I'm going to warp my 2-inch loom and do the pattern on the 2-inch loom so it's quicker to get through. It's the same principle. It's done the same way. So I'll be showing you both ways here. Okay. I'm just going to warp this one and then I'm going to actually weave after I warp on this one. Okay. So to start off, let me scooch over here so I'm closer to my loom. To start off here, okay, put that through that way. Get one of my clips, my handy dandy clips that come in handy for this kind of thing. Oh, maybe that one's not going to stay. All right, we'll play it by ear here. Okay, so I have this in the number 1 corner. 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously they're like imprinted in the plastic, so I don't know how well you can see them on camera. So in order to warp for the twill, and like I said, you can also use it to make your variation of like a plain weave where all of your warp is one color and your weft is a different color. You're going to start off like you would be warping for plain weave. Okay, so we're going to go around these 2 pins. We're going to go in between the 4 pins at the number 1 corner, around 2 pins. Then from here on out on the top, what you're going to do is you're going to go in between the number 1 and number 2 pins and around number 2 and number 3 and go through the space. So in between 1 and 2 and through the space. And then down here, you're going to do the same thing. In between 1 and 2 and then back through the space. And you're going to continue to do that all the way across the loom. Oops. Like this. You guys are going to be shocked at really how easy this is. It's so easy to do just a plain twill. There are also variations online, and maybe once this video goes up I can post something in the comments, like, because obviously I'm having technical difficulties today. Like I said, my chat's missing, so not quite sure what that's about. Yeah, it's really being funky right now. So what I'll do is I'll post some links later for places where you can find patterns. I even have some books, which I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, so you go all the way across. You're going to go around those 2. Now, keep in mind there's 4 pins here. You're going to go around 2 and 3 and come in between 3 and 4 and down to where you would normally go before you turn it for the plain weave. And then instead of turning it to 2, what we're going to do is we have corner number 1 here. We are going to turn it around like this. So now you have corner number 4 here, corner number 3 here. Okay. You're going to go around this number 2 pin. Now it's number 2 from your left hand side. You're going to go in between 2 and 3 down here. So you're splitting this wrap around here. And then you're going to go around and through the space in between 1 and 2, around 2 and 3, through the space. In between 1 and 2, around 2 and 3, and through the space. And I probably should have put my yarn on this side of me while I do this, so that it looks like that. Okay. And then you keep doing this all the way until you reach the number 3 corner. And basically what this is doing, you've warped your loom. So now if you wanted to go and do a plain weave, you would start at corner number 3 and just do your under overs all the way across, and hit your usual pins. So it's very, very easy to warp this way and then do your weft for a plain weave in a different color. However, we're going to be doing a 2-color twill. So here is where I would secure this yarn and cut the tail. But since I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker on this so you can actually see what I'm doing, I am going to ditch this. This is how it's been warped on the 4x4. I'm going to warp the 2x2, and I'm going to do the twill on the 2x2. That way I can take you to the end, because there is a trick at the end where you're going to need to make sure that you finish a certain way so that it locks in all of your strands so your stuff doesn't come apart. Because if you're not paying attention, you could very much have part of your weaving fall apart or your edges fall apart. Okay, so here we are again. I'm going to show you real quick. We're going to start at the number 1 corner and go up to number 3. Now that I'm using the small one, these little clips will work. Okay. Around those 2 pins, in between 2 and 3, through the space, in between 1 and 2 up here, around 2 and 3, in between 1 and 2, around 2 and 3, all the way across, down to number 2, turn it around this pin, in between what was previously 2 and 3, so you can split this wrap through the space in between now what is now 1 and 2 pins, around, and go all the way across. Super duper easy. There you go. All right, so I'm stopping at the 3rd corner. Cut that baby. Where did I stick my other? Here's my other handy dandy clip. There we go. So that's what it looks like right now. Here's the number 1 corner. Number 1 corner, 2, 3, 4. Okay. We're going to start weaving from corner number 3 where we ended our yarn. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to do that bright coral color. And I've seen different numbers for how many times you should wrap it around your loom in order to get the right amount. I'm really at a loss as to like what that exact number is. I'm just going to kind of wing it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops. 5. 6, 7. I'm going to do 8 times because usually I wrap 4 times for the small loom. I do 5 times for the larger loom in general. So, I mean, double it. Whatever you would do for 1 pass in a plain weave, which I want to say is like 4.5 or a 5, you're going to want to double that number. And you will have leftovers. And then once you do that and you realize what your, I want to say gauge, but how much you're pulling on your yarn while you're working some of your weaving, because obviously yarn has different kinds of springiness, what have you. you'll be able to, after 1 or 2 squares, know how many wraps that you particularly will need based on how tight you wrap it. So keep that in mind. Everything's an experiment. Okay. So here we go. We're going to start at corner number 3 with our weave. And I made this handy dandy card because I don't know how to do any text in this app yet. I haven't figured that out, mostly because I've just been making stuff at my house. So this is the twill pattern for this twill. Okay. So row 1 of this is P. Oh, I did say I was going to show you how these patterns run. Okay. So anytime you see P, that's called plain weave. That's your over, under, over, under, under, over, whatever. And then it should give you instructions about which pins you should be wrapping around to go back the opposite direction. And then row 2, obviously, if I'm going across this way for row 1, I would then turn it and be going the opposite direction for row 2, so on and so forth. So when you're reading a pattern, I'll hold this up here. It's very much like any knitting or crochet pattern. You're going to have pattern repeats in parentheses. So when I said it looks a little bit different from a regular pattern, it's just in the symbols that they use for certain things. Obviously, P is for plain, O is for over, U is for under. It'll give you the amount of repeats for this, and then it'll tell you what your last 2 stitches are. Now, these instructions right here are for the 4x4 loom. So you will do it 7 times. You won't see me do it 7 times because I want to actually get to the end to show you the reason why this is what we're doing here. Okay. So I'll just keep this kind of up here so you can see it. All right. And let's see here. So we're going to start at corner number 3. Row 1 is plain weave. Now, I can see, because this particular piece right here where we end at corner 3, in between pins 1 and 2, is above this wrap here, right? So it passes over this section right here. Because of that, and because I want to make sure that I'm locking in these strings, this yarn, I'm going to go and start with under, over, under. And what that does is it's the exact opposite of what is happening in between these 2 pins. I don't know how well that'll adjust here. It's the opposite of what's happening between these 2 pins. Therefore, it's going to lock this yarn into your square. So, and you'll just proceed doing that plain weave all the way across. So under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and all the way across. And you can probably see already, I'm going to show you this. You can probably see already that the way these yarns are wrapped around here, that the act of the under, over is also locking these yarns, these wraps together. So I'm going, because this wrap, let's see if there's a better way to explain this. Because this wrap right here, no, that's not gonna work. Let's find something pointy. Because this wrap here was, let's see, this wrap here was from our first pass, and this was from our second pass, right? So going over and then under this one and then over this one and under this one then locks these 2 passes together. If you were to do it the opposite way, what you would end up having is a separation like this, where this wrap is not locked with this wrap. And then when you pull it off the loom, those pieces. So you want to make sure that these pieces right here are all locked in together. So with that being said, we're going to go over, under, over, under. And as you can see, if I do this, they're stuck together. They're not getting pulled apart. So we're going to go through, and that is our row 1 right there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock this coral stuff in there with that gray one. There we go. Row 1, plain weave, super dupes easy. So when you're doing plain weave, sorry, I'm going to take a drink, but when you're doing plain weave, make sure you're following those directions so that when you come back the opposite direction, you'll obviously do the opposite of that for a plain weave, but you want to make sure that your end is locked together. So there's row 1. Let's turn this bad boy around and we'll do row number 2. Row number 2 is over 2, under 2, and you're going to end with an over 2, under 1. So, first, row 1 plain weave, wrap around C4 pin. That's corner number 4. C4 pin or CR4 pin is corner 4. So you're going to go up like this, and you're going to make sure that it's going to go around that pin. And the easiest way to do it is just lift it up and do that before you do the next row. Okay. So row 2, over 2, under 2, ending with an over 2, under 1. So you're going to go through this space here. You're going to exit between the 2 pins right there. So you're going to be wrapping around that CR4 pin. Okay. Over 2, under 2, over, under, over, under, over, under 1, exit between 2 pins at corner 3, wrap pin number 2. And I like to turn mine around when I do it because it just makes it easier to pull through because I'm a right-handed person. So there we go. That is row number 1. Awesome sauce. Okay, so then wrap around number 2 pin. Row number 3, over 2, under 2. Notice it's basically the same as row 1. You're going to exit in the space, and you're going to wrap around the number 1 pin. Okay, so you're going to go over 2, under 2, over, under, over, under, over, and you're going to go through the space right there, wrap around pin number 1. Okay, so that's row number 3, basically complete. That's what we're working with so far. Okay. Now it says you have to wrap around number 1 pin. So that's our number 1 pin, which means we're going to be coming in between pins 1 and 2. So right there. Row number 4 is over 1, under 1, over 2, under 2, and you're going to end with an over 1. Okay. So over, under, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 1. Exit in the space. That's right here. You can see space between the pins. And wrap the number 1 pin. Okay. So that's row number 4. Row number 5. Under, over, and then you're going to end with an under 2, over 1. Okay, so since we're wrapping the number 1 pin, that's this one right here, closest to me, and we're going to under 2, over, under, over, under, over, under, over 1, and you're going to wrap the number 3 pin. 1, 2, 3. That one right there. So you're going to go in between pins 2 and 3. Pull that around here. There we go. And you could probably see, although sometimes it's hard when you're just looking at it and you're starting off, if you turn it to the side, you should see these diagonals. A lot of times if you're looking at it straight on, you're like, oh, wait a minute, not all my stuff is like really close to each other and it's pulled apart a little bit because I'm using thinner yarn, what have you. If you're wondering if you're still in pattern, just turn it like this and you'll be able to see it. There's my diagonals there. Okay. So we're going to be wrapping pin number 3, and we're going to be starting with row 6, which is under over 1, under 2, over 2, and ending with an under 1. So we're going to go wrap around 3, under, over 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 1. We're going to go in between pins 2 and 3, wrap pin number 3. Right there. Sorry, I was pointing at the wrong row there. Okay, so that's number 6. And if you're ever questioning, because I do this a lot, as a person who loses track of their thoughts a lot, let's say I got a phone call and I had to put this down or whatever, and it's upside down like this, I always go back here. I did under, over, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I was on row 6. So it's easy to figure out where you're at, because now what we're going to do to stay in this pattern is repeat rows 3 through row 6. And if you'll notice, each one starts with a different thing. So what you'll do is you'll go and, look at what you did in your previous row at the very beginning, and that should give you an indication of where you left off. Okay. So now we're repeating rows 3 and 6. I just ended with row 6. I'm going to wrap around pin number 3, which is right here, and we're going to go back to row 3, which is over 2, under 2, over 2, under, over, and under, and you're going to wrap around the number 1 pin. So here we go. Like this. We're going to do row 4, which is over, under 1, over 1, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 1. And you're going to wrap around the number 1 pin, which is that one right there. And you're just going to keep doing this till you get to the end. Row number 5, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 1. Wrap around pin number 3. And the good thing is, like Twill, it's not a hard pattern to do. Here's row 6, under 1, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 1, wrap around pin number 3. It's not a hard pattern to do. The warping for this is generally easy. I'm doing this in 2 colors so that you have an idea of what it looks like. You can easily not cut your ends and do the same thing all in 1 color if you're just looking for the texture and you're not looking for a color change. It's very easy to do so. Okay, see, I lost track of where I was. So I'm going to go back to my previous row. I did an under 1, over 1, under 2, under 1, over 1, under 2. That I was on row 6. So now we're going to go back to row 3, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 1, like this. We're going to do row number 4, which is over 1, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 1. Pull through. Again, where am I? Is it in pattern? Oh, wait, look, that looks pretty uniform. So we're doing pretty good so far. Okay, row number 5, under 2, over 2, under, over, under, over, under, over 1. Pull through. Okay. Row 6 is under 1, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 1. So, Stacy, you're getting to the end. Whee! What the hell do you do now? Okay, well, we've got one more row I have to do. So, this says, I'm going to do one more row of row 3, I should say. And then I'm going to end with row 4 or modified plain weave. So I'm going to explain what that means. But let me do row 3 really quick. So I'm going to go around this last pin, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Did I miss one? I feel like I missed a stitch. Over 2. Under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2. I did. Whoa. Under 1. Oh, wait, I didn't end in an under 1. I must have done something wrong and missed a warp somewhere. Also a very good way to figure out. Obviously, I make mistakes all the time. So clearly from this video, you can tell I make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. That's how we learn. So, okay, there it is, guys. There's my twill. It's looking pretty good. Okay, so now we are going to end with a row 4 or a modified plain weave. Okay, so what I mean by that. Okay. When you're coming around the end here, if I were to do a plain weave, remember how I said at the beginning how you need to sort of lock these in together? And now keep in mind, the previous row has them locked together. But if I start here and I go over this last stitch here, okay, and then under this one, over, under, over, under, these little doodahs at the end here, see, will be split apart. And then it'll be like really loosey-goosey and floppy and stuff. And that's not what you want. You want to have these locked together. So one way you could do a modified plain weave is, yeah, go over, under, and then maybe go under this other one, over, under, over. So you're locking those in place. And this is one of those things, it's like while you're doing it, you kind of have to look and see, am I locking my wraps at the end in place? Are those warps going to be like loosey-goosey because I, decided to just do a plain weave and now they're like all flopping apart at the end? You don't want that. So that's what it means by a modified plain weave. So if I were doing a plain weave on this, which I'm not going to, but this is how I would do it if I were, I would go over this last stitch because the last pass was under. So I'm going to go over and then under this stitch, and then I would go under the next stitch and then proceed with over, under, because that is then making the rest of the row locked in. And I'm still locking in my end bits, right? I'm still locking in this piece right here where I just passed under. I'd be locking that in. So I would have to go under these two here. Or what you can do is you can end with row 4. And row 4 is over, under, over 2, which immediately is locking these two in. Under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, and over 1 at the end. Now, with that being said, It does make this a little loosey-goosey in this corner. Um, I usually don't mind that because I'm either going to be taking some of these and attaching them. See, like I got a little loosey goosiness over here at this end here, but like I'd be, where's the denser one? Here, we'll just use this. Okay, so I would find a way to lock in my ends probably when I go and do, see, like you can see, like I have a strip here of the teal and a strip here of the teal. That's where I wove in those ends. So I'll take, when I'm going back and forth with this aqua or whatever color it is, when I end here, I'm taking that end and I'm going to weave it along the side. Now, it's not anything that's going to show up and be crazy when you're attaching these together. So like when I go about attaching these, whether I'm going to do, because I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet, chances are I'm probably going to do like a crochet chain back and forth. It's not really going to matter so much. And the act of doing the crochet chain that I'm going to do like zigzaggy across will lock in some of the end that's woven in with the piece itself. And it becomes less noticeable that you have that. So like you can see here, I've got this pink here. That was because I took the end and I wove it in there. If you are attaching these like you would a crochet square and you're crocheting across the top, basically you're crocheting over that line anyway, so it's not even going to show up because you'll have an edging here, right? So something to think about when you're finishing your pieces. So this is my row 4. It's already in there, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and then I can show you how the ends could work here. So I'm going to have 2 ends over this end here. It's not bothering me any. I usually use these end pegs anyway to make it, because I am very heavy-handed and I like to just yank on things, which, is part of the reason why these are kind of loosey-goosey, is because it's so floppy. And I even made a mistake on this one too. So, that's, like I said, we're here to make mistakes, guys. This is my life. These are really loosey goosey, so it's kind of like whatever. But when you get to the denser ones, it makes it a little bit easier to weave in these ends. I had a couple ends on that pink one pop out anyway, so that's part of the reason why it looks all messed up like that. So I ended here. I'm gonna go around here, and I'm gonna, because I pull tightly, I'm going to go around this last peg so I don't yank it all the way through, because I have done that. I did that on the pink one there, where I didn't put it around the end peg. And then I'm like, oh, wait, now I got to try to zhuzh that corner back, because you'll get a yarn that kind of does this weird curvy thing in the corner. So, it's a good rule of thumb to make sure you anchor your yarn before you pull the ends through. So I'm going to go around this here, and I'm going to go the opposite of these two here on the end. So if you can see that right there, that gray piece is in pattern with the twill. So I'm going to go over it, because that looks like that would lock that end piece in place, and under, and then just continue to do that through these loops all the way across. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you do you, right? I could do it that way. I could, there's so many different ways I could probably do it, but we'll do it like this. Or if you're going to sew with your ends too, you can do that too. Let's say you want to, look at it, see? Look at all this extra I have left. Definitely didn't need 8 wraps, but it's all about hiding stuff, right? So for this one, because I have these 2 ends on the one side, I could theoretically go halfway through, that's also what I did here. If you see this floppy corner here, it's because I popped this end. I'll just take it out. I popped this end out while I was goofing around with this and then tried to weave it back through and wasn't sure what I was doing because I had already cut the ends. So, you know, usually what I like to do is I like to weave this all the way across and cut it. Usually that means it's going to stay in. I have seen people who are doing at least the 4-inch ones who will weave it halfway across. And then I've got, see this coral piece on this side too, weave this one halfway across and then cut them in the center. That's what I did here. Maybe don't do that for a 2-inch because that's just, look at this end. That's ridiculous, right? So for this one, because I have these 2 ends on this side, I'm just going to take this off and I'll go back. I could go back the opposite direction. Does it really matter? Probably not. I mean, weave in your ends however you want. It doesn't matter. No, not at all. Yeah. Chances are you'll probably end up putting these together like granny squares anyway, and then you will be totally fine because nobody's even going to see any of this stuff anyway. Or if you're feeling brave, oh, I really did that, didn't I? If you're feeling brave, just go ahead and use your ends to sew things together. I mean, I think the chicken that I made originally out of the plain weave. Oh, what am I stuck on? Oh, see, there you go. Perfect example. I didn't secure it and it's all getting all crazy over here. So now I've got to go in. Where did I put it? Find that corner piece and pull it out because I yanked it too freaking hard. And you don't want that to happen. So I weave in my ends, then I cut them. I live on the edge. And then I've got these two guys right here. So I will have like a piece at the end that is, you know, a different color. But like I said, you'll probably be covering it up, right? Okay. So for these gray ones, I'm going to pass them both this way. So here's one. And sorry guys, my stomach's making noise as I have not had lunch. I don't want to do this. How do I want to do this? Maybe I'll just be this person. I'll just do a plain weave. That's fine. I mean, look, see what makes sense with your square. And sometimes if your ends are too short, which I have a tendency to do because I'm always like, I have to get the most out of my yarn and I don't want to have too many ends because what am I going to do with them? Ugh, you guys, I save all of my ends. I save most of my ends. I have a jar right here on my desk. I'll show you in just a second where my ends go. Okay, don't pull it too tight, Stace, because I did not secure this around a corner. Oh, I did it. Fudge. Like, let's say your yarn gets stuck on your needle while you're pulling it, like it just did, and then you've got to try to zhuzh it out again so it doesn't look like it's crossing over here. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's try to make it a little bit nicer. Okay. And then cut it off. So do as I say, not as I do, because clearly you see that I do things in just whatever manner suits me. Ooh, I'm gonna go like this. Yeah. So for how do I want to do this? I'm gonna do the modified plain weave, so these stay in where they're supposed to. And I'm going to go right through there. I'll do that. Okay, it's gonna wrap around that pin. So I'm like, oof, look at me pulling things, making mistakes on camera. It's my life. Okay, so there it is. Let's pop it off. There you go. There's your twill. See, that's not so bad. Yes, I do have the ends on the one side, but you know, like I said, you're gonna be covering them. And I can show you in a future video like how to cover that and stuff. And you're gonna need to probably steam blocking might be nice. I don't know. I haven't tried to wet block any of these yet. I imagine they'd probably be fine. And like I said, here's the new jar with my ends in it. Where I'm keeping all of my little orts for a future project, hopefully someday. So yeah, so that's it. That's Twill. And I think that next week I'm going to show you guys houndstooth, which will also be another way, a different way to warp the loom, so that you'll get to see how that works. But like I said, if you don't want to do the 2-color twill, just go ahead and use your loom like you normally would. Do the warping. So I'm just going to show you real quick. Boop, boop. Do the warping as you would for the 2-color. Turn it around. I also have seen online some people who tie like a slip knot or whatever in the end to, hey, whatever floats your boat, if it keeps it in place and you don't mess it up and get it attached to something you're not supposed to, then by all means, secure your yarn in whatever way makes sense to you. Like I said, I usually use these clips because it's just, I don't know, it just seems easier for me. I really hate to do slip knots. It's a big pain in my butt. But here we go. There is no perfection here. There's only learning. Okay, so then you would do, that's around 2. Here's 3. Go ahead, wrap your loom with however many, and then just use this like you would use the 2nd color and do the same weaving. And then you only end up with 2 ends to weave in instead of 4. So it's the same diff. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And I don't know, hopefully you guys will start making some twill. And it really goes well with like plain weave. So if you wanted to combine, not that I would combine these 2 colors, but if you wanted to combine them into a bigger piece, you could 100% do that. And you know, this was me playing around. I'm like, could I do twill in this loosey goosey yarn? I don't know. How do I feel about it? So yeah, you know, play, have fun, figure out what you're gonna do. And I hope you enjoyed the twill. And like I said, next time we'll do houndstooth. And I can show you that because that is super fun and I really like the effects of it. Oh, look at, I see I goofed up this end too. Whoopsies. See, always making mistakes. This was me trying to whip up a bunch of examples today, but yeah, so there you go. That's what it looks like.